Context, context, context. I'm in a hotel right now with my dog because my AC went out in my house and nobody could get to it today. Last night, my dog about died of heat stroke. I live in Florida, so it was like over 100 degrees in the house. So tonight we're staying in a hotel. So sorry if the lighting's not great, but I'm working with what I got. The verse we're gonna be looking at is Jeremiah 29:11, which reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans of welfare and not for evil, to give you a future of hope." So this is another feel-good verse that a lot of prosperity preachers love because it makes people feel good. It makes them feel secure. So what we do in the 21st century is we take this verse and we attribute it to ourselves right now in modern times. The problem with that is that this verse, especially this Old Testament verse, was written to a specific people during a specific time within a specific culture and while they were having a very specific struggle. We like to console ourselves with this verse. We like to attribute it to ourselves during some sort of struggle that we're going through. We'll also use it to make somebody who's maybe struggling or battling a terminal disease or any kind of disease to make them feel better and secure. Or we just attribute it to anything that has to do with trials that we're going through as a consolement verse, just to make us feel good. This is a bad idea, and I'll tell you why. What if we do use this verse for somebody who, say, has cancer? We tell them this verse to console them, make them feel better, and then day by day they slip further and further into the disease. It overcomes them until eventually they die. If you tell this to somebody, if you quote this verse to somebody and it doesn't come true, you're painting an unrealistic view of God, which could ultimately damage their relationship with God and their faith in general because they were promised something and then maybe they don't get it. This verse used out of context leads to unmet expectations of God, and it can crush our spirit when we don't receive what the verse promises. It's almost like we have this feeling of betrayal because God promised this to us. From what people make it seem out of context, God promises this to us, and when we don't get it, that means God betrayed us. So this horribly damages our view of God. What's really happening is Jeremiah is promising to the Israelites a specific end to their Babylonian exile. This is another perfect example of only having to read one verse behind to put it back in context. Jeremiah 29:10 reads this, "When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place." That's the promise he's talking about. That's what this verse is about. The plans that you read within Jeremiah 29:11 are the plans that God has for the Israelites. Another important note is when God promises prosperity, almost every time he promises prosperity within Scripture, it's a spiritual prosperity, not a material prosperity. It's not money and things. It's spiritual welfare. What I'm not saying is that God doesn't have these plans for us, that he doesn't want to prosper us, see us grow, and see us be happy and healthy. Rather, what I'm saying is that this verse specifically is about the Israelites and only the Israelites. It's not about you and it's not about me. Within the Old Testament, you have to be really careful because if you are a Christian who believes in Jesus and that there was a covenantal shift with Jesus, the Old Testament then becomes a history book. It adds context to what Jesus was doing, what Paul was doing. They quote the Old Testament a lot. But when you read the Old Testament, you have to know that those verses are not about you. They're not about me. They were about the people that it was written about during that time only. I'll give you a better way to quote this verse. This is a great verse that simply shows God's character, his love for us, and the things that he promises us, or the things that we can expect from God because of his character. It's a great explanation of God's character. The verse isn't about us, but it clearly displays God's love, compassion, and care for his creation. If you like the video, do me a favor and do the thumbs up. Subscribe if you aren't already. These things really help with video ranking, which just means that the videos will be seen by more people. So it's like views, thumbs up, and subscriptions are what help the videos get airtime. So if you could do that real quick, it takes 2 seconds, just hit the button. After that, find me on social media. Instagram is definitely the biggest. I started doing Facebook and Twitter recently, so if you want to jump on board with that, feel free. And then check out theologyforums.com if you're into theology and you want to have very bright conversations with people who have been to seminary, people who are pastors, or seminary professors are all on that website. So if you're really into theology, check out theologyforums.com. Otherwise, I'm going to see you guys on Wednesday. I still don't know what I'm doing yet. I'll post them on Instagram within the next day or so. I love you guys.